Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm Jordan Shannon. I'm joined by Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
Good, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to this episode because I've been, looking forward to discussing the ODI series against England. We've gone over the three ODIs against Ireland. We've debriefed those, and yeah, I'm intrigued to get your thoughts really and how you see it going, and what can the West Indies do off the back of the three performances in Ireland to go and beat England really.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this series. I think that it's going to be a very close series when you look at the lineup of both teams. Obviously, England going through a complete reset.
Yeah,
Bit more experience probably just through the likes of a Josh Butler and a Joe Root, but
yeah.
apart from that, very inexperienced team. So I think that it's going to be a close fought series, and I think that it's going to come down to whichever bowling attack is able to, I guess, restrain the other team more so than not, because I think the batting is pretty much even.
Yeah. Um, well, England have named their 11 for the first ODI on Thursday, well, tomorrow, which is Ben Duckett, Jamie Smith opening the batting, Joe Root at three, Harry Brook at four, Joss Butler at five, Jacob Bethel at six, Will Jacks at seven, Jamie Overton eight, Bryden Cart at nine, Adil Rashid 10, and Saqib Mahmood at 11. So, like you said, the batting, you look at the strength there, and then, from a bowling side of things, he definitely got a bit of variation. I think Adil Rashid will play. I think he'll play a big part. Really, that experience will be the big thing. Really.
Yep. And so for the West Indies, it's going to be a matter of trying to let Adil Rashid do as little damage as
Yeah.
possible. If he bowls his 10 overs for 30 runs, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No wickets, that's fine. We can target the next 40 overs. But if Adil Rashid is able to bowl and getting anything like three, four, 5 wicket hauls, then it's going to be a tough uphill battle for the West Indies. So I think that's where I guess the matchups are going to come into play. Obviously, you'd have liked maybe another left-hander or two in the middle order there against
Yeah.
Adil Rashid, because he sort of plays a big role
Yeah.
in that middle order in terms of stifling teams but taking wickets as well.
Yeah.
But West Indies have got to figure out a way to, I guess, combat him. And having said that, you look at the last time the West Indies played England just recently, last year in the Caribbean, the West Indies did come out as series victors. So
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to take away confidence from that performance coming into what is early still. I mean, almost June now, but still early season here in terms of cricket. So
Yeah.
the West Indies should, I guess, fancy themselves in playing him on pitches that aren't necessarily as worn as it would be towards the end of the summer.
Yeah. I agree. I think the point I want to go back to is obviously what you've been saying, leading into this is maybe swapping, Shea Hope and Brandon King around because that's going to be a key part. If you believe that Brandon King plays spin very well, then you'd probably want him, facing what's going to be that 10 overs of a key part of the game, really.
Indeed. Not and just so people don't get this confused, we're not saying that Shea Hope is also
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a good
of
player of
course.
spin. But I just think that for the best results for the team, I think that Shea Hope is the best opening batter that West Indies has had in limited overs
Yeah,
cricket, and the statistics prove that in itself. So that's where I'm going from in terms of that. But I do think that it will benefit Brandon King to be able to come in when the ball isn't as new, it's not doing
yeah.
as much. Um, and he can have a bit more freedom with the field relaxed as well and just hit the sweepers earlier on.
Yeah, yeah, and I think from looking at the England side in a bit more detail, for me, they do seem a little bit undercooked in my opinion. A lot of these players haven't played that much, well, they haven't played a 50 over ball, sorry, a 50 over game since the Champions Trophy. Root and Duckett and Jamie Smith, looking at our top three, have all played one first class game and then the Test match last week. So there is an element here. I know we spoke about preparation that they could be a little bit undercooked as well going into that first game. I know that, and Harry Brook's the same. He only played the first class game and then the Test match. Just Butler's obviously played a load of IPL stuff, so he will be coming in. At least he's been playing, a high volume of cricket. And Jacob Bethel, similar to the top order, he's only played two IPL games. So since the last game in the Champions Trophy, he's only played two T20s. So When you look at that top six, it's not played a lot of cricket by Joss Butler, really.
Exactly. And that's why I made the point at the end of the last podcast that I think that the West Indies can somehow sneak away the victory in the
Yeah,
first ODI here because they've been in a situation where obviously they knocked off that rust after the first ODI against Ireland, which they
yeah,
lost, but they were able to rebound, and you saw the batting continually get better and better
yeah,
in the next two ODIs, and obviously the bowling would have had a run out in two of the possible three innings as well over in Ireland. So they come in with a bit more ODI preparation, and so that's another reason as to why I think it will be a lot closer of a series than people give it at the starting of the series. But
yeah.
it's left to be seen by what happens on the field of play, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And there's going to be, the pressure that I spoke about in the last episode with it being a new under Harry Brook, so that there'll be a bit of pressure there, and obviously the lack of performances in 50 over cricket full stop over the last couple of years have just been, it's just not been to the standard which from an England fan perspective has been there. Um, I do kind of want to pinpoint a little bit onto Jacob Bethel really because as highly fancied as he is around here, and obviously he was thrown into not thrown in, but he was given his call up to the Test team off the back of not really making. Well, he didn't make a first class century. He's probably because of the situation with the IPL. I think he was probably earmarked to play the Test match against Zimbabwe, really. And because of the situation with him going back to the IPL, he missed that game. Ollie Pope then goes and scores a century. So his situation coming into that Test team is sort of up in the air. So with them not being much, well, he's not going to play any 4-day cricket before the Test series against India starts. I'm thinking that he's going to really have to stamp his authority in these three games because because he wants to be playing Test cricket and he wants to put his name forward. So from my perspective, I think that he's got a big series, especially off the back of being in the IPL but not playing as well.
What position do you see him batting at for England?
ODI wise or Test cricket wise.
ODI.
Um, probably where they look like they picked him, which is to bat at number six, really, and utilise probably from an all-rounder perspective. Where did I see him batting in Test cricket? Probably at three.
So batting at number six in an ODI, realistically,
Yeah.
how much impact is he gonna have on a game to have a big series to put himself forward to bat at number three in Test cricket?
Well, he,
When you look at the likes of the Ben Ducketts, the Harry Brooks, the Joe Roots, the Josh Butlers,
yeah.
how often is he going to come in and have more than 20 overs to bat?
Well, he's probably not. But that's why I think it was quite interesting that they went with Jamie Smith opening the batting. I thought they would have gone with potentially him opening the batting.
Exactly.
But
So
so maybe
I
that's
don't
their
know.
statement of intent. Maybe they're saying, well, you know what, it's maybe that's the Test cricket's part for the time being until because I do think they were going to drop Ollie Pope. I'm sorry to go back to Test cricket. I think they were going to drop Ollie Pope.
I think that, I mean, Ollie Pope is the vice captain at the end of the day, and they've tried everything to keep him in the team as
Yeah,
well. He did keep wicket in New Zealand.
yeah,
Um, so it may just be a situation where he starts that series on the bench that in this series on the
Indian
bench.
series.
But
Yeah,
for this series, I think more so he'd be focusing on just getting consistent performances. Whatever happens in Test cricket
yeah, of
happens in
course.
Test cricket. But yeah, he needs to focus on the here and now.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, definitely. I think we'll definitely be touching base. 'Cause I want to talk Test cricket with you when England. Well, we've got a couple of things that we want to talk about Test cricket wise. We want to talk about the England Australia series. Sorry, the West Indies Australia series, and then England and India. So we'll park the Test cricket talk for the time being because we have got a couple. We'll be definitely going into that into a bit more detail. But I know I named the 11 that, well, England have named their 11. I know we briefly touched on it in terms of any changes, but do you see any changes tomorrow from a West Indies perspective?
I think they'll go in again with that same team that played the last two
Last one.
ODIs. Obviously, it was unchanged. Obviously, they didn't get a chance to
Yeah,
bowl in that second ODI, but that's the same team that went and won the third ODI as well. I think they'll go with that to start this series as well.
yeah,
Obviously, you've got the likes of I think a Shimron Hetmeyer joining this squad
Yeah,
instead of a John Campbell. So if anything, you'll be looking at the likes of an Amir Django in the middle to get some scores. I think
yeah,
that's probably what they're looking at now. And if that doesn't happen, then obviously Shimron Hetmeyer will come into contention probably for match two and
yeah.
three. Um, but outside of that, no, I didn't realize that Gudakesh Moti was the number six ranked bowler in the world. I think I saw that on Cricinfo today in a
All right,
series,
okay.
in an article for the build up to the series. And Shehab obviously is the number 11th ranked batter in
Batter,
the
yeah.
world ODI cricket. So, no, I think the West Indies will be unchanged. I don't think there's any need for a change. And hopefully, as I said, the West Indies can have a good start here, having had all that match play across in Ireland.
Yeah. And speaking of that article, I read the same article that you're talking about. England's form, I know I mentioned obviously the Champions Trophy, but they've not won one in five.
I think it's an interesting time for English cricket because they've slipped to what? It's number eight now on the table.
Yeah,
And I don't know how it would be received here if England don't have direct qualification to a World Cup and have to go and play in a World Cup qualifier, because obviously that's something that's never happened before. But you look at the likes of an Afghanistan and how they've developed over the
yeah,
past, let's say, 5 years, where they're in contention pretty much for at least a semi-final berth in most global 50 over or limited over tournaments
yeah,
now. That's really skewed the upper echelon of the traditional cricketing nations in terms of having an automatic qualification spot. And obviously, with I think is it South Africa and Zimbabwe that directly qualify because they
yeah,
co-host?
yeah, yeah,
Correct. So it makes it a lot more interesting now. This battle between the West Indies and England. So I expect it to be a hardly fought series. I do think that I was surprised by the West Indies not asking a Sherfane Rutherford and a Romario Shepherd to come to this series, obviously understanding what's at stake with 60 points up, no, 30 points, sorry, up for
yeah,
grabs here, and as much wins as possible to automatically qualify. Having said that, I think that it's going to be an interesting series because you see England have recalled Joss Butler, for example,
yeah,
because they want to have that direct route to the World Cup as opposed to having to go through a qualification spot. So
yeah.
I think both teams are taking it very seriously as they should, and it should be a good series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to like as we start. I'm looking forward to it because when from an England perspective, when you've got a Joss Butler in your team and you've got a Joe Root in your team, and obviously you've spoken very highly well of Ben Duckett. When we have got the quality batting to be able to compete at a high level from an ODI perspective, we just haven't put it together as of late. Well, nowhere near putting it close together. I think from a bowling perspective is where I'd like to see some players step up a little bit now. And I'd like to see Sakib Mahmood, hold down that role. He has been in and out the side, and I appreciate that, there has been some injuries here and there along the way. But, this, from a bowling unit perspective, other than Adil Rashid, I want to see Overton and Carson, Sakib Mahmood really put their stamp on international cricket from an ODI perspective. And put them as well, one of them or two of them really being the spearhead of England's attack. Um, from an opening bowling perspective, and then also from a finisher, from a death side of things, you know, I'd like to see that. I know it's only three games, so I understand I'm obviously asking a lot, but you do want to see things, and we've seen it in the Ireland series of West Indies. You can see bits of performances, and I kind of want to see that from an England side of things, really, as well.
I think that if you look at both squads holistically, batter for batter, everyone basically cancels everyone else out.
Yeah,
Because Joe Root's gonna go out and run a ball pretty much as Shea Hope
a Shea
is.
would do, yeah,
Um, Josh Butler potentially is a point of difference that a Sherfane and Rutherford could have offered, but
yeah,
then you look at an Evan Lewis, he can offer that from the top of the innings.
yeah,
So that sort of cancels out Joss Butler because Evan Lewis has the potential to do it for a longer period of time,
Yeah,
opening the batting as opposed to Joss Butler coming in the middle.
yeah,
So, they cancel each other out as well. A Ben Duckett and a Casey Carty cancel each other out. A Brandon King and let's say a Harry Brook, for example,
yeah,
at this stage of both of their ODI careers, they cancel each other out as well. If anything,
yeah,
Brandon King may be in front of that because he's got ODI centuries already.
yeah,
So for me, as I said, the point of difference for this series is Adil Rashid.
yeah,
How can the West Indies negate him and absolutely attack the next 40 overs?
yeah,
Because the West Indies, from a bowling standpoint, obviously the leading bowler is Alzari, but given the conditions and the nature of A, English wickets, and B, how England go about playing white ball cricket non-stop attack,
yeah,
you expect Alzari to go for more runs naturally, being a seamer, than what Adil Rashid will go for.
yeah,
Um, so the series simply comes down to how many wickets Adil Rashid is able to get.
yeah. But I think you mentioned there about Shane Gudakesh Moti in terms of the rankings. In terms of him being six in the rankings, he needs to perform like he's six in the rankings, if that makes sense. And so that's the big thing is that, you kind of want that performance from him to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to put my hand up here. I am, this is why I am in the top, ranked as high as I am. So, and that's where you'll see that he'll give that big balance in the side as well, really. And I think that I think he'll have a big part to play in those middle overs as we are speaking about Adil Rashid. If we can get something, West Indies can get something similar out of Moti, then again it'll make a big difference, really.
I think what people have misconstrued about Gudakesh Moti is that he's not effective. If you look at Gudakesh Moti's average, you look at his strike rate, you look at his economy rate, and you look at the consistency at which he does it. Gudakesh Moti is an excellent bowler.
Yeah,
Excellent bowler. He's able to mix and match his pace, his lengths, obviously bowling a bit wider,
yeah,
whatever the case is, to certain batters to keep them in check. And he does a brilliant job, in
yeah,
my opinion. I think for let's say maybe the past 6 months or so, he hasn't been in the wickets as much as he would have liked, but he's still bowling, let's say 10 for 50, 10 for 40, and
yeah.
whatever the case is. So he's not going for runs.
No,
He's just not getting the volume of wickets currently as he normally has been.
yeah,
But again, as I always say, once batters are going that hard at you, that provides you with an opportunity
yeah,
to take wickets. And so he will have a great opportunity here to take a lot of wickets in this series. And for me, if I'm good at Keshimoti, I would be happy to sacrifice 15, 20 runs for an extra few wickets because if he bowls 10 for 60
yeah,
in every one of these three games, but gets 4 wickets per innings,
yeah,
and that's more beneficial than him bowling 10 for 40
yeah,
or 10 for 50 and getting one or two.
yeah.
That puts the team in a far more advantageous position. And so that would be my chain of thinking. If I were him and if I were the coaching staff, I would tell Gudakesh Moti to go out and express himself and try and entice as many wickets as possible with guys looking to hit the ball out of the park.
Do you think though that that's where it's imperative that the opening bowlers get it spot on? I think early on they got the lengths and the lines wrong, especially in the first ODI, and then it then probably makes it a little bit harder for the spinner or first, especially I would say the spinner coming into the attack if they have got off to that 70 for non-start and things. So I think I agree, totally agree with what you're saying, but I think it means that they have to get it right with a new ball.
I think everyone has to get it right. It's not
Yeah,
just the new
yeah,
ball
yeah,
bowlers,
yeah,
because we know, for example, this England team after they had sort of that Owen Morgan boom, like,
yeah,
they're the ones that started to push 400 as a norm and sort of change the way that
yeah,
ODI batting is and how it's gone now in recent years.
yeah, yeah,
So you know that they're going to try as much as possible and score a boundary every ball if they
yeah.
could. Therefore, you need to be spot on. You need to limit width, as I said in the last
Yeah.
pod. In audio, in any form of limited overs cricket, you do not want to provide width, whether it be leg
No.
side or offside, where guys can free their arms. Um, so that's number one. You have to be smart in terms of mixing and matching your pace, whether
Yeah.
it's doing something or not. Because if you're just consistently on a good length, ball off the ball at the same pace, guys are going to line you up and they're
Yeah.
going to start putting you away because we're talking about the best in the world. This is
Yeah.
international cricket.
Yeah.
So that's going to be important as well, the variety on show. Um, and so I think literally just little factors of watching guys. You can sort of sense when someone's about to go or when someone's trying to play a big shot as well. If
Yeah.
you're looking at the batter carefully enough, you can see little small differences in their setup, whether it be their back shoulder drops a bit, or you could see
Yeah.
them like itching, fidgeting, gripping the bat a bit tighter. So it's just for information to be communicated whilst on the field from both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm really expecting this to be a very, very good series. Expect it to be a high scoring series.
Yeah.
Um,
Think
and
tomorrow will
so I
be.
think, yeah, I think that's where the likes of, let's say, the more explosive players like an Evan Lewis and a Joss Butler
Yeah.
will have a huge impact on the outcome of this series.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like predictions. So go on. What do you predict out of three? So the three ODIs.
I expect a 2-1 to the West Indies, 1-1 going into the Oval.
Yeah, I would. I would. Well, I would say that. I'm not just saying it because you said it, but I would go in. Yeah, I think the West Indies will win tomorrow, and I think that England will claw it back. And I think, yeah, I do think. I think they'll go into the decider at the Oval, which will be a good game. That's the way I see it. I'm intrigued to see some of the battles. I'm intrigued to see how some of the England players perform. Like I said, I think from a pressure perspective, I do think there's a lot of pressure on them as a group of players. Um, but I do think that the batting will go toe to toe as you discussed. I'm just looking forward to it. I am. I'm looking forward to looking back at it and debriefing it with you as well because it's been good to go through with the Ireland game and pinpoint. When we break it down, it's good to get those insights from your perspective. But I think there's no disrespect to Ireland. There's a lot more eyes on when England play the West Indies and stuff, and I think the exposure is a bit more out there. So um, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. I think that I think Roston will have a bigger part to play with the ball this time. I think that the way that they'll try and go about from an attacking perspective, I think he'll play a bit more of a key role with the ball. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all goes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that another key factor is, I mean, obviously losing Jofra wouldn't have been
Massively.
ideal for England, not just for this series, but for England long term.
Yeah,
Um, but I think another key factor is the fact that so many of their bowlers are just coming back from injury.
yeah,
So you're putting them into high octane cricket with
yeah,
not much match practice before that. There's also a potential chance that so many other things could go wrong. A guy could
yeah,
get re-injured, whatever the case is.
yeah, definitely. Well, again, that's where the preparation aspect comes into it, which we spoke about, and that there hasn't been any, from a 50 over perspective. Like I said, they played the majority of them seem to have played the one first class game and then the test match. So it'd be interesting to see how it all pans out. Let's just hope the weather. I know that we have had a decent bit of weather recently. It's been a bit iffy the last couple of days, especially up north. But I do believe that the forecast looks pretty set this weekend. It looks nice. So I don't think rain will play a part, which is what we want when you play in England. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But yeah, all good. Anything else to add?
Stay tuned, guys. I might actually go to the final match, so
Oh, that'd be
that'd be
good.
interesting. First time I've watched a match of cricket in God knows how long, so that'd be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to look to go to the T20 at Chester Street. It's only about 2.5 hours from me. It's the closest one, which is annoying, but hey ho, they don't like that. They don't. It's not a massive fan of the North this early in the season. I think they need to get to the peak summer for cricket to take place in the north. There's not enough layers. I don't think the West Indies team have enough layers to come up north anyway.
I don't think there's enough players in the Caribbean for the West Indies team to come up north at this time of the year.
No, quality's always, mate.
Cheers.